Welcome to the Contractors Edge, the show where we break down the strategies, tactics, and tools that you need to grow your home service business. Whether you're in a truck or in the office, we're here to give you the edge that you need to win. I'm Mike Stiers.
Anthony Brown.
So today's episode is packed. We're hitting an edge of the week that every contractor needs to pay attention to right now. And then we're going to dig into one of the biggest headaches in marketing, attribution confusion. So Anthony, with that, why don't you hit us with the edge of the week?
All right. Edge of the week this week is going to put some focus on the Google business profile. I bring it up all the time that it is one of the best properties to leverage digitally for a business. And the edge of the week is focused on making sure that you don't let it run awry on you with the changes that Google's doing. So they've rolled out some new updates for 2025, and contractors need to keep an eye on them. WhatsApp integration. So this one's strange to me. I don't really understand it. I've never been a WhatsApp user though. A WhatsApp integration now lets homeowners message you directly from your profile. So it's kind of like a text message functionality that goes through the WhatsApp platform. It's strange, and it's kind of one of those auto apply recommendations type of things. If you're not checking what your settings are in your account, you might be receiving messages in this WhatsApp thing and not even realize it. So just make sure that you are keeping an eye on that. Reviews are showing up in a story format. So that makes them more visual and attention grabbing, which puts more impotence on getting really good reviews. So I actually really like this change, and encourage you guys to focus more on your reviews. You always should. And then there's one last one I want to bring to your guys' attention, and it's a big one. Google bots, they're automatically editing profiles. Again, this is something that happened about 2-3 years ago as well. But it's not just for services and categories, which is what it was before. Now they're changing your company's name. So we've had examples of companies with like 4 or 5 words in their name become just the first word of that name. It is being done automatically. You are not being notified, warned, anything like that. So keep your eye on that. Mike, I want you to weigh in on this as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Obviously, the team, our team, at the agency is always monitoring things, and normally we'll get like a variety of email notifications from Google regarding changes in your Google business profile. And so that's what like alerted us to one of the changes. And I was trying to think of like, okay, what's a way without giving the client's name away? So here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say, let's call it River Foundation Repair. So what has happened in this instance is that Google took it upon themselves to say, foundation repair can't be a part of your name because that's like a service category. So your name's River.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, thanks,
Nobody
Google.
will ever find you
But
now.
it wasn't just that it was like a random thing. So it hit one
Mm-hmm.
of our clients on the East Coast. Then it went and it hit one in the Midwest. And it's like, and these are really bad. And it's just going to do nothing more than confuse the homeowners. Heck, it's going to confuse people that are trying to deliver stuff to your business.
Your business, yep.
So,
Getting
like Google's
directions, like your
way
employees are going
overreaching
to be
here.
confused.
Yeah, and it's something that people are talking about. They're not talking about as much. So I'm assuming it's not like happening. We know it's not happening to every business profile.
Mm-hmm.
We've only seen it happen to a few, but obviously they always change the categories. But this time now to like overreach and change somebody's legal name, there's already a registration process where Google makes you jump through all the hoops, dot the I's,
Mm-hmm.
cross the T's, and literally, give up all the information for your firstborn just so that you can legally be registered as your business name. And
Mm-hmm.
now these bots are just like acting in a very strange way.
It
So
got a
yeah,
little
keep an
bit
eye on
rogue.
it. If you've got folks in your marketing department or an agency, just make sure that they're aware. It is definitely very strange. So something we
Yeah.
wanted to alert business owners to immediately because the GBP is your golden ticket to free leads.
Yep. So I want to leave you guys with an edge on what you should do. Uh, don't set and forget the Google Business Profile. It's something you should not be doing already, but you might be getting away with currently, right? Check your profile weekly. make a post, check on one of your reviews, respond to something, do something while you're there. Reject incorrect edits immediately. So these will show up as pending changes. Like if you're looking at your profile, it'll show you that there's a change pending and you can reject it. Make sure your business name and services are consistent everywhere online. So this is part of that NAP principle, name, address, phone number. You want that to be consistent across the digital landscape. And then if Google changes your name, open a support ticket and provide your legal registration to get it fixed.
Yeah, and I will say so far we've had a lot of luck. Previously, anytime you would make changes to like, key indicators to Google, it would flag it. So if you changed your name, if you changed your telephone number, change your URL, there were instances where you might have to go through the process of verifying, who you are and all that good stuff. In this case, we've actually been able to make the adjustments to back to the original business name, just on the listing itself.
Yeah.
So, you know, thank goodness that has been smooth so far. So yeah, Anthony, I mean, just like you're saying, keep an eye on it. It's
Mhm.
incredibly important. Now, on to the main segment. This was something that I went to Anthony. I said, look, I don't necessarily want to have a guest on this week. I want to talk about something that I believe is really timely. And in the position that I have in the agency now, I get to have like more of that holistic view, and so my ear's always to the pavement, and I hear our strategists, talking about different things that they're experiencing. Obviously, I'm talking with other agency owners, people in the industry, and even business owners that we just offer a little 2 cents or sometimes an ear if they've got some questions. And something that's happening right now, and it's just like I feel like this is kind of like the quiet killer to, like your lead pipeline,
Mhm.
is right now what we're seeing and we're hearing. And I started to hear this kind of perk up maybe like 2022, 2023, is where it started to kind of get on my radar, is that I feel like, business owners or business decision makers, whoever's managing, the allocation on advertising budget, they're now in this mode where not only do you look at like an attribution report, and the attribution report in most cases shows, either your first or your last click. And I know, Anthony, we're going to have you kind of dive into the granular details, but I want to explain for our listeners why I have this concern. So the overarching concern is that I believe business owners are cutting off different attribution points within their lead pipeline. And when they're doing that, I think they believe they're making the right decision, but they're ultimately, hurting. They're going to see their leads drop, because, we know right now, 11 to 14 times is what it takes to impress your brand upon someone for them to, consider you. That's in the home service and the home improvement industries. So, I want to dive deeper into this. Anthony, I'm really hoping that we can bring some value to our listeners so that they can kind of look at it in a different perspective. Because this isn't one where we can give you an end all be all answer. But
Mhm.
I want to remind people of how things used to be first. So I can't imagine what it was like for business owners to run their businesses and have to choose, where they're allocating their, resources to generate leads.
Mhm.
And now we have clarity and attribution tracking, mainly on like the
Mhm.
last click is really what we pay attention to.
Mhm.
Full funnel would be something like a triple whale, which is going to cost you an arm and a leg on a monthly basis. But that gives us visibility. It's when things go
Yes.
into this next level, like, okay, you know, walk us through, Anthony, like what can happen on a granular level, or at least like what we're hearing now.
Yeah, so this is something it actually goes back to like the very first episode of the podcast where we talk about how important measurement is, right? So it's going to sound like an oxymoron that we're talking about this and saying, "Hey, I don't want you guys measuring the way that you're measuring," right? Because it's creating these traps. Um, and we see them all the time. I saw them a lot in TV because back in the day, all you had was survey data. That's the only way that you
Yeah.
could determine basically anything was effective in your advertising, was a tracking number or survey data, right? Um, and
Oh, don't
with
forget the offer codes.
Oh yes, don't forget the offer code. So if you know this coupon code, that means you saw my ad. So
Garage 2006.
absolutely. Uh, with the digital world, we have attribution now, right? And it is basically like leaving an air tag, um, like in your system that says where you've come from, where you've gone, right? You can call those pixels, you could call those like device codes. There's a lot of different ways that they're kind of trying to follow you. IPs, for example.
Mhm.
But what I've noticed a lot this year, and it like kind of frustrates like an advertiser, right, who's trying to assess and parse all of this like high level data and help to make really good, educated, qualified decisions towards the strategy is we find these business owners or these business decision makers who and it's funny because it sounds like an oxymoron. These are the people who are putting in the extra effort to
Yeah.
get this measurement, and they're actually asking their customers, and they're building spreadsheets, and they're like making graphs, and they're saying, "Hey, this is the most effective like medium or method that we're using." It's like, oh, actually, our our truck wraps generate more leads than anything like in our marketing mix. And what's really happening, and I say this with all the love in the world, what's happening is you're being lied to. Like your
Yeah.
customer does not know what their first interaction with you was. As Mike has said many times, what is it, 11 touches these days, 13 touches? It's
Yeah,
like,
it's like 11 to 14. It's so
yeah,
crazy.
it's so many, and you don't know which one was the first one, which one was the middle one, and which one was the last one. And more than anything, your customer does not know that. So, like, I want people to try and understand because of how dangerous it is to make like really big, like wide-ranging decisions based on this data, because you could be looking at a whole year, and every single one of those answers could be like a misdirection for your strategy. So the last click tunnel vision reports show like Google Business Profile or Direct. So owners cut TV, they cut radio, they cut yard signs, they cut sponsorships or social. Those channels created the demand that resulted in somebody coming in direct or coming in through your Google Business Profile. But like what you see is that last click in that journey, and you're giving all of the credit to that last click in the journey. Another one is the anecdote overweighing. So that is kind of what I was teasing out at the beginning here is homeowners will say they saw you on Facebook. They'll say they saw you on TV. They'll say they saw your truck in their neighborhood or a yard sign. So the what ends up happening is the owner hears that, they get really excited about this initiative or endeavor that they just did, and they cut everything else. They put all their money into that one platform, and they don't realize that it was a team effort. It was not this one thing that generated all of this demand for you. Uh, what ends up happening is your appointment volume ends up dropping because in the mix, it's a funnel, guys. You have to create interest, and then
Yeah.
you have to like marry that down into the demand, right? And so what you're doing is you're cutting all the things that create the interest, and that means there's less stuff down here for the demand. So the third thing is overwriting your CRM. So tracking says one thing, the homeowner says another thing, and someone edits the original source field in your CRM. So now your data is polluted, and you cannot trust your dashboards. That data is broken for that whole month, but that month or that week, that month, that year. Like if you keep doing this, all that data is useless in a sense, right? You'll never be able to clean it out 100% once you've broken it like that. So be careful about the ways that you are uh, attributing the success or the failures of your efforts in marketing. Make sure you're looking at things in a holistic way. Talk to your strategist because they should have ways that they want to measure how successful this is. Those are the signals that you want to look for. And I hate to say it because I love your customers. I know you love your customers. Don't trust your customers on when they say how they heard you or how they found you.
Yeah, I was telling you the first time that I went through this, obviously with our, separation from Basement Doctor, no longer personally leading the initiatives to where I could control it. So we wouldn't necessarily have what we would call like mission creep, somebody else
Hmm.
taking their own initiative and, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Well, some individuals got involved in some things. And even though we were managing 100% of the marketing and advertising, they decided to ask questions. So not only did the call center stop reporting raw leads, which was like that was crazy because then that really hurt us. So you didn't know your
Which is
sources.
just a timeout. Edge of the week. If you are not if you're not measuring raw leads, you're making
Yes.
somebody in your strategy unhappy. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's flying blind. And then,
Hmm.
magically these appointments show up and you're like, "Oh, okay, so you're 100% lead to appointment?" No.
Hmm.
Okay.
The best
Well,
in the
what
world.
happened to the other inquiries? Because here's the thing. Before you had attribution tracking, you had a call center. They answer the phone. How'd you hear about us? Oh, Molly down the road, use you guys, you were great. Oh, okay, great. So referral, okay, great. We put that on. Boom. Now, everybody wants 100% referrals. But when you're first talking to the homeowner, that nowadays everything we have is like a way that something can be branded. I
Hmm.
think about like we have our phones and we got our TVs and we got our radio and we got every streaming device. It used to be if you watched the movies, you could tell like that one or two, product placements. You were like, oh
Hmm.
yeah, oh my gosh, look at that Pepsi. Like, and
Yes,
then you wanted
exactly.
nothing more than Pepsi. Now you're inundated. You're
Hmm.
like, there's one, there's one, there's one, and it's just all the way flooded through. So I bring this up because the homeowner has no idea. I mean, like, unless it was just like shot out of the blue that they happened to see your truck in the neighborhood or they heard your spot and then they called you immediately. The reality is that what you just told us about, Anthony, is branding. So
Yeah.
if a business owner is cutting out the branding aspect, they're going to
Hmm.
miss so much because the homeowner isn't like really trying to mislead you and the
Hmm.
report isn't set up to mislead you. No one's lying. It's just the human element.
Hmm.
You've got, think about our memory. If somebody, asks you what you ate for dinner last night, how long is it going to take you to remember that? That's what's so
Hmm.
crazy. But let's put it in perspective, that they remember the last thing that they saw. And that's where we say, okay, there's a recency bias, with your memory. Or even like, we call it channel blur, but that would be, an individual that, well, they did see you on the TV and they did see the
Hmm.
yard sign when they were on a walk. And, the neighbors did mention that they used you, at some point. Well, guess what? Then they did. They searched you on Google, like, so then it just all blends together. So is the homeowner really going to tell you, I saw you on TV and then I was on a walk and I saw it? No, they're not going to. It was whatever is most recent. And the tough thing is you probably won't even get, credit for the referral. But if you went and started cutting out these little pieces on that journey, wow, you have less touch points. You have
Hmm.
no recency bias. You're not influencing. It's just amazing for me. So just understand, like the homeowner is not intentionally misleading you. They also do not value your reports and that
Hmm.
information as much as you do. So I
It's
know that's your big piece on that one, Anthony. So
it's so funny because this stuff is so much more complicated than people realize. Like we have a customer that's in the Northeast. Some months, the majority of the leads that they get into the business are because people are trying to find their competitor.
yep.
So, like, if you survey that customer, like, how did you hear about us? It's like they actually heard about you because your competitor educated them that they need this service. Like, all of this stuff comes full circle. Like, you might not even be the reason why that person is calling you. So,
Can I throw a
like,
smidge of a cheat code in there?
yeah.
So for our listeners, and okay, so you're getting a taste of our strategy here. But what Anthony said is incredibly important, and all it does is just reinforce exactly what we're trying to explain to you. Because Anthony and I came in and we're like, God, this one's kind of a weird one. We're always like leaning into data and telling our listeners, lean into your report and measure this and measure that because you do have to, and you still have
Yes.
to. We're not telling you to not do this, but the big piece with all of this is like you have to have this concerted focus. And
Hmm.
I know we've got these reports, we put all these focuses into the reports, but you can't also then make knee-jerk reactions just to pull the plug on things. You can make little
Hmm.
changes here and there to kind of give that direction, that you're looking to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, okay. So I wanted to point out that so on the first click attribution, we talked about all the ways that it can kind of mislead you.
Yeah.
The end of the line can also mislead you because, like we were pointing out before, there can be 11 to 14 touches that all happen from the beginning to the end of this journey. And you trying to find one thing and say, this is responsible for it, is how you end up going the wrong way down the road, right? So last click also has bias. The last touch gets all of the credit. So if you only look at last click attribution, you're going to say Google Ads is the best thing that you've ever seen in your life, and you're going to put all of your money there, and nothing else deserves a penny at like whatsoever. The reason is because Google Ads is often the end of the journey. The same thing for your Google business profile. That is how they find you after they're done like embarking, right? So
Yeah, it's
maybe they
true.
were doing some research. Maybe they were looking at different options. They were trying to figure out what type of service or what type of need they even have, right? That's your first 1 to 13 touches. By the time they get to the 14th one, now they're searching your service or they're searching your name, right? Those are the two options there. You're going to get the Google business profile, you're going to get the Google ads, or you're going to get the Google organic, right? Most likely it's one of those three methods that's going to be at the end of your journey. That tells you nothing about what brought that person to you. It does not at all. So direct or unknown also have like a unique element to them as well because there's privacy rules that have gotten worse and worse over the years, right? Um, and with devices changing and switching, and like maybe you did part of your search on your phone, you finished part of it on a desktop. Uh, a lot of the real traffic gets pulled into those buckets that are
Yeah.
direct or unknown, which really aren't telling you as much as the other like mediums. Like if you see something as organic or as paid, it's a little bit more instructive. When you see direct or unknown, direct usually means they've already been to your website before. There was another reason that they had come in before, which was probably a different source. Unknown means, good luck. Google doesn't want to show you anymore.
That's right.
Um, and then brand search cannibalization. So your TV, your truck wrap drives a branded search, and then the report credits organic or Google Business Profile. That is 100% due to your branding efforts. It has nothing to do with your organic. And your Google Business Profile is a extension of your branding and your organic. So like that one's kind of a 50-50. And then cross device reality. So some of that interaction that they have with your messaging or with your branding is going to be in different places. So it can be like out of the home, right? So you can have billboards, you can have posters that are at the soccer or football games. Somebody can see you in their home on TV, in their mailbox, right? They can find you through doing searches on their phone. They can call from a desktop tomorrow while they're working in their office, right? Like that's how wide this net can go from where somebody's journey starts and where it ends. So public service announcement, because we've seen it too much this year. This is a
Yeah.
little bit of a rant. Do not walk away thinking this is one to one, that you know the answers because you surveyed your customers, because those answers could be the absolute opposite of like what is really driving your success.
Yeah, I mean, we can go through just an example. So, and this is one that we hear, on a consistent basis, and it's one that I know without a shadow of a doubt, it goofs with the team when they're gathering the information. So, like, homeowner sees your TV commercial, then in that commercial, it's going so fast that they're able, like, they catch your name. Oh, okay,
Mhm.
yeah, got your name, but I didn't get that number. Oh, man. So now I've got to go and do that search. So now I'm going to go on Google and I'm going to look up the name, and the first thing that should come up for your business is going to be your Google business profile.
Mhm.
So now I'm going to click to call, and I'm talking to the customer service rep. They want to know how I heard of the business. And I say, well, I saw you on TV. Well, but then the attribution says Google business profile.
Mhm.
Now at the end of the day, they're both right, but
Mhm.
here's the part that you were cluing in on, that cross device, and that's what we really have to think about as well, is that we've got this opportunity where because they saw your television commercial, you're now in consideration. Now they cared enough that they didn't get all the information to actually reach out to you. So now they're going to do a little bit more. And so now they end up finding you on your GBP. So depending on what method you take, okay, now this is the initial phone call. The customer is telling me TV, okay, that's great, it's offline because I really can't necessarily measure that. But then if I look at the last click report, the last click attribution report, it's going to say Google Business Profile. So if I start studying this report so much and I'm so focused on this last click, now I'm just going to cut TV from my budget. And
Hmm.
now I'm going to, turn around, within the next 15, 30 days and be like, man, what is going on with my lead flow?
Hmm. It's funny too, because that just made me think, Mike, of something I say with customers all the time. When we bring on our clients, when we bring on a new client and I look at their source mix of what's currently coming in before we touch anything, and your Google business profile isn't like your number one source of leads,
Yeah.
you have a branding problem more than anything, right? But there's also an SEO problem probably happening as well
True.
because of how much bleed goes through that Google business profile. If people
Yep.
are searching for you or the services, it's usually one of those top results. Some people search off of their maps when they're trying to find, contractors or home service providers. They don't even go to a general search. So
Yep.
like that was just something I wanted to throw in there. But here is what those cuts that people are doing look like in real life, right? So you cut top of funnel channel by 50%. Brand search falls 15 to 25%. Your Google business profile calls follow. Appointment set looks a lot worse. Your cost per sale climbs. Your close rate dips because your sales team sees fewer warmed up homeowners. So the system is always working together. When you starve one part of it, the whole thing starts to slow down. Um, the only other thing I wanted to add to kind of that list is your cost per lead is going to go up as well. We talk about this all the time with like Google Ads, LSA, all of those kind of pay at the counter transactions that you're doing to get that lead. When you are not branding, the people are not going to you because they trust you. They're going to you because you are one of their options, right? In that format, you're usually getting people who are going to shop you more frequently, right? And then you're going to end up paying more to get to the top of the auctions because you're having to go after those more expensive keywords. People aren't looking for you, they're looking for the service. You have to pay more to get to the top of the line with the service. So each one of those inputs actually ends up higher. And that's how you eat up your margins. You lose your profitability, you lose your scalability. So,
Yeah. And this kind of just goes along with what we kind of suggest and what we typically put together. And it's the way that the old schoolers did too. The old schoolers would either look at the previous year's revenue and take 10% of that. That's what they apply to their marketing and advertising budgets. Or they, if they were aggressive, they would say, okay, this is going to be my goal for this year. And they would market and advertise, according to 10% of that. And then they would make as educated a decision as they could, in
mhm,
that regard. Obviously, they didn't have the visibility to the attribution thanks to the technology that we have now, but they had a
right.
good indication. But I will tell you one thing that they always did was try to be in as many lead sources as possible.
Mhm,
And, they would look at their lead source report and obviously identify, okay, these look like really good lead sources. And then they would, follow that and maybe reallocate some more budget into that. But the last thing that you want to whittle your way down to is, let's say you're trimming the fat to try to improve your efficiency and you're down to one lead source. Man, that one lead
mhm.
source, let's pretend it's digital, let's pretend it's Google. And now something goes wrong with Google. Something goes wrong with your hosting, something goes wrong with your website. Where are your leads going to come from? I mean,
Yeah.
so, Anthony, what do you suggest at that point? Like, instead of guessing, what should the business owner be doing?
Yeah, so it's about blending kind of these principles. I understand the instinct these homeowners have, or I mean these business owners have, right? And it'll feel like common sense to ask people and use this as your measurement and kind of use that as barometer to help you decide which direction to turn to. What you should do instead is separate these two things, create both of them so that you are having visibility of them both, but create the two permanent fields and do it in your CRM, right? So
Mm.
that it'll easily be monitorable, right? So your tracking source system, the first party source from like your first party data collector. You've got CallRail, you've got what converts. There's a lot of options out there. Your UTM tags, and then your DNI or dynamic number insertion. Basically, what you're doing is saying, I want the nerdy technology stuff to tell me where people are coming in from, right?
Mm.
But also, the other thing that you want to have in there is that customer stated source because they are eliciting like some, a lot of the time they are eliciting something that can help you understand what your influence in the market is like. So if they say that they saw your truck, you know that they probably have seen your truck at some
Yeah,
point in like in their life. They didn't lie about that, right? It might not
right.
be the trigger that really made them call you, but that is a nice bit of data to have to know about the effectiveness of whichever, source that customer is going to give you that answer for. So never overwrite the tracking source with the customer stated. You want both of these. You can measure them against each other, and it'll be a lot more instructive for you in helping make your own decisions. But also, like if you do have an agency or somebody internally that runs your marketing, them being able to have access to both of these data points is going to help the strategy overall. Teach your CSRs the two source script. So thank you for sharing that you saw us on TV. Quick question so we can improve our service. Did you happen to search our name online as well before calling? So now you get both sides of the story without arguing with the customer. So I like that idea. I can see it gumming up phones in certain situations. So in my mind, that's having three inputs there where you get double customer source. So you ask them to provide two, but then you also still have, your first party data giving you an indicator as to where that first or last click attribution. Port with tiers, not a single winner. So basically you're triaging this and you're saying who was the originator, what likely sparked the journey, often TV, radio, yard sign, referral, or social. The connector, what they used to find you. So that's often your Google business profile, your organic search, or your page search. And then the closer, where the appointment actually got set. That is often your phone, your LSA, your branded search. When customer stated TV and tracking says GBP, log TV as the originator, GBP as the connector, and phone as the closer. You will start to see patterns you can plan around.
See, I think that's interesting, and I'm not opposed. I always laugh. I'm like, man, am I resistance to change at times? Yes, unfortunately, I will admit there are times when I've been maybe a little resistant to change, and I'm sure that plenty of our listeners are as well. You are going to hire someone at some point in time that's going to take initiative to put something like this into your business. So always make sure that you are asking questions about where the data and the information is coming
Mhm.
from. I know Anthony and I both speak from experience. We've seen it firsthand, either with our clients or, other business owners that have ultimately come to us like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's wrong right now with my lead flow. And it's because they've literally, I mean, pruned the bonsai down to a stick, and I mean, that's the tough thing. We have to think about our businesses and the ways that we want to expose ourselves. And I love that you mentioned like Little League and door hangers and yard signs and TV and radio. That is, you want to expand it out. You want to have control measures so that you understand
Mhm.
how much you're spending, and you want an indication that if it if it costs a lot, I always tell the digital team, if it costs a lot of money, I want to see measurable results. But if I can reach like 1 million people in a month and you tell me I'm going to spend $100, let's do it all day, every day. As long as those are individuals that meet my mark. I want a homeowner whose heart's beating, who lives in the geography that I want to service and they're interested in the services that I have. Let's show them an ad. And, I think probably an easy way to think of it, but I want to help the listeners like set up some guardrails because they are looking at these reports. They are, or someone within the organization is empowered to look
Hmm.
at these reports and make these decisions. So, when you're looking at these, don't just make the decision off of like 1 month. Don't think it's, all right, this month it looks like this, so I'm going to cut this off and maybe I'm reallocating budget or I'm just pulling back. Like, hey, Anthony, I had a tough time setting meta leads. Okay, well, you know what? Let's talk in reality here. We know that the platform is going through some aggressive changes. Our good buddy Zuckerberg, thinks that every business owner out there is going to be able to operate their ads campaigns on their own. I mean, imagine that. So you've got skilled agencies that are doing it that are having challenges, but you're going to make it so that the platform can be for a business owner to run it themselves. What a joke. So, I mean, if anyone feels confident in giving that man a stack of cash, just go for it. But, the way that, we're looking at things right now, you know, don't just sweep something off the table entirely. Understand
Hmm.
that, hey, Meta actually has a really good platform for brand awareness and reach in a targeted manner that you don't have to spend a ton of money. It does get leads, but it's a different type of lead. You're breaking into this, and your branding has worked so well that it
Hmm.
turned into an opportunity to talk to this homeowner. It's
I
totally
think it's,
different.
can I jump in on that too?
Please.
This is one of the, it's a pet peeve for me too on that platform specifically, because we, we have clients on both sides of the spectrum here where it's one of their best lead sources, period. And this is contractors. It's
That's
not
true.
supposed to be lead generation. It's not supposed to make appointments and be your number one ROI. It's not supposed to. It's supposed to be branding for like service businesses, and it's supposed to be e-commerce for like retail, right?
Yeah.
That's what does best there. We found a way to get the right messaging to the right people in a way that can get you a lead. But what often happens is you've got these two different sides of the world clients where one of them takes it very seriously. I have this opportunity. This person is trying to reach me. They want to do business. I'm going to respond to them immediately. I'm going to get them on the phone. I'm going to get them on an appointment. I recognize how disruptive this interaction was from their original plans. Maybe they just wanted to take a picture or like look at a picture of their grandchildren, right? And they scroll into your ad and they're like, wait, that looks like a crack that's in my wall. You've got their attention right now. They're like, oh, okay, I'm not going to look too much into this, but I'll give them my information. You wait 6 hours to try and call that person. They are now at bingo. They're not answering your phone call, that you might never reach that person again.
Mhm.
And what ends up happening is you take these really good leads, and you can't tell me they're not good leads because you never got a hold of them, right? And you say this money was wasted, that these leads are not good, and what you just paid to do was educate that customer to go work with your competitor because you didn't want that lead. Like, sorry, I just had to rant.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. Trust me. I mean, I share a lot of your passions. Uh, back to like we're essentially looking for some trends before we make some decisions to cut or reallocate. So, we're really looking for like leads or appointments that are down from multiple sources, not
Hmm.
necessarily just one. If you're noticing that, and this is why it's super important, make sure that your customer service representatives are tracking and reporting on everything. So the reason why a raw lead is super important to document, and then obviously appointment set, even the appointment run element, is because there are a lot of lead sources that generate a lot of raw leads that never actually turn to an appointment. And there's two reasons behind that. One, Anthony just touched on. Okay, guess what? Your speed to lead is horrible.
Hmm.
Like you
Hmm.
literally, if you're not, replying to someone that submits a form, in less than 5 minutes, you're done. You have no shot. And at that point, blame yourself because you're not holding your CSRs accountable. The
Hmm.
other piece of that is that you're generating these, phone calls you're not answering. And, yeah, you think you get back to them because you're
I'll
listening
call
to
them
your
back.
CSR. Yeah, the CSR gets back to everybody. Sure they do. So,
Yep.
nothing nothing personal intended other than if you if you really want to improve, there's transparency and accountability. And so in these instances, you can't just pull the plug on a lead source because you're mismanaging the process. And all of these leads have
Yes.
to be treated in a different way. So then that last element that I kind of want to talk about too is understanding that external factors are normal. And here's just a few examples. Seasonal drought, right?
Hmm.
You hit a drought. You hit the cyclical nature in your business. It's either in flux or it's out of flux. You've got people missing time at work. And, well, as a result, guess what? You're going to have less appointments because you're not
Hmm.
answering all those inquiries fast enough. I would say in the instance, obviously you've got holidays, but there's changes in platforms. There's economic issues.
Hmm.
There's scary things that happen that create, instability, to a homeowner where they don't feel comfortable. And so all of those things are going to create these fluxes. And that's why we're like, hey, don't be reactionary because one month can seriously be an impact from an act of God, economic conditions, a platform in some kind of weird flux. But that's where if you are taking things slowly, look at the previous month, look at the month, same
Month.
time last year. We were
Right.
just having this conversation transparently. We had a client that, one of the business growth strategists, I heard them talking in the office. He was very concerned. They were going into this meeting. And he's like, man, August looks so good, but September's starting off kind of funny. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons behind that, but almost everyone's starting off with an interesting challenge in September. But let's look at the performance within analytics, which looks at all sources that are driving traffic into the website. And let's look at a 30-day performance window and layer that with the 30 days the year before. And when we did, we saw that flat line. And I was like, look, man, there's no stress here. I mean, it's just data. Now, if I didn't see that correlation during that same time period and the same patterns in not just demand by traffic, but also like the conversions, that was an indicator like, okay, this isn't an anomaly. This is typical. And
Yep.
so if I'm a business owner, I'm not making a knee-jerk reaction. I appreciate that the data has been brought to my attention. I can
Hmm.
clearly see that there's a correlation in the cyclical nature. So we're just going to be prepared. I'm going to monitor it because that's the best thing you can do. And if it
Hmm.
doesn't, get better, then we need to dive deeper. We need to find out what's going on. And,
Right.
I always look at all the sources. I look at the marketing and advertising. I look at the customer service representatives. I look at, the sales team and I look at our follow-up process. And, that's why I'm going back to the KPIs again, Anthony. If you're tracking and measuring all these KPIs, they give you, your green, your yellow, your red. Thank you, Anthony.
Hmm.
And that's when when you've got a problem.
Exactly. Uh, where do you want to jump back into this, Mike? Because I think we've taken a nomadic journey from the original plan.
Yeah, and that's what's great is I love coming into the shows and you've we've got a basic game plan.
Hmm.
And I think the biggest piece is just helping business owners or business decision makers because there's a lot of marketing directors out there that have a lot of responsibility. I mean, when you're a marketing director and you're getting in this, most of the ones that we work with, they've been at it like let's say 1 to 3 years for the most
Right.
part. It's scary when you're, managing a $3 million a year company, a $10 million a year company, a $30 million a year company. And, that's a lot of responsibility. And you don't want to make the wrong decisions either. So,
Mhm.
like, look at everything, track everything. Don't make knee-jerk reactions. The just follow the process, of
Hmm.
understanding, okay, this is where we're allocating resources. Look for the cyclical trends, talk to the customer service representatives. I think that's the biggest piece is
Yes,
just
literally.
use your
Uh,
resources.
One more thing I want to add on there. This one, so listeners, be honest with yourselves. Do any of you at all, have you ever measured
Uh-oh.
the time, like your response time to leads?
Yeah.
Just ask yourself that, and then like sit and think: is that not one of the most important inputs into this process? Is that person is trying to be in touch with you right now. The best thing that could possibly happen is they get in touch with you at that very moment. So are your phones available? Have you staffed well enough? Do you have enough resources there? Right.
Yeah.
Then if you do have to do the callback thing, are you measuring how much time it takes between like when they called and when you're able to call them back? Are you measuring from when that form submission comes in to when that outbound call goes out from your team? So, Like that was just one more thing I wanted to add.
No, I really appreciate that too, because I think that's something that, like I'm not even considering now you've kind of put that in my mind and I'm thinking about
Yes.
that too. And it's funny, I always go back to, Basement Doctor managing that call center, with Pat, with Ron, with Ed, over those years. Um, we really weren't measuring the response time.
Hmm.
And this was a call center working with all the call centers I've worked with over the years. I mean, it is the best,
Hmm.
and it could have been better. Might have been a 4 out of 5, and maybe that would have been what took us to that next level because we were always looking for ways to improve, and we did have a speed to lead rule on the form fills, and
Right. Exactly.
we didn't allow missing phone calls, during business hours, even though it would happen, but no, that's a great tip, and I think that that's something that we will want to talk about in the future. I know that there's a lot of lead management, call management, companies that we lean into. I'd love to kind of pick their brain into how
I
they're.
would love to get one of them as a guest. So
Yep,
we'll call this a shout out invitation, guys. Reach out. We obviously are super nerds about attribution
yep.
and like tracking. So if any of you out there want to have a fun conversation,
Yeah, let's get some tips out there. Let's help folks, as far as our tracking, our time, the response, how we measure it, how we coach, how we hold people accountable. I'd love to get a guest on here. I think we'll do some reach out too, because that'd be something good for our listeners. I think it'd be
oh,
very valuable.
absolutely.
So, all right, Anthony. Well, with that, I'm gonna take us into the pro tip. So, in regards to this pro tip, just don't wait for things to get off track. Don't make that when you actually are reviewing your strategy. Do a quarterly check-in, with your
Hmm.
marketing team. If you're working with a marketing agency, work with those folks as well. Just understand that, there is a perfect time to look at these campaigns, and it's probably pretty
Right
continuous.
now.
Don't make
Yeah.
knee-jerk reactions, but just understand that we're leading into the fall. I
Hmm.
hate thinking that. I'm not ready for this year to be
You
done
got to
yet,
say
but
leaving into the fall, Mike. You got to get the pun in there.
yes, leaving into the fall. Thank you,
Good.
Anthony.
Yeah.
So check your revenue goals. Look at how you've paced. Look at what your allocation's been. Look at what your plan was that you set out
Hmm.
coming into the year,
Yes.
and how you were pacing, and start to look back at, okay, if lead flow was down, what did it look like? What was my lead to appointment ratio? How much did I spend? What was the lead cost? Then dive deeper in and look at cancellation rates. What was your average dollar per sale? What was your close percentage? Because this is really when you start to look at everything holistically. I know Anthony and I, it's about time we get on the phone with our clients and we start
Hmm.
talking about, hey, let's talk about 2026 and let's get this game plan in order, because if you can really put together a nice plan and negotiate and get everything in place now, it does make for a much smoother year.
Oh, yes. A 30-minute strategy session could be the difference between hitting your numbers or spinning your wheels. So don't skip it. One thing that Mike just pointed out that I feel gets overlooked, it's kind of like the New Year's resolution thing that I signed up for the gym and I feel really good about myself. You developed that strategy, actually execute on the strategy. So don't just start knee jerking, squirreling over to this new cool shiny object over here, but then also review quarterly. Is my strategy working? What were the targets that I set that would tell me if this strategy was working? Like actually assess those things. Don't skip it.
Yep. No, that's a great tip. So, well, that's all for today's episode. If you got value out of this conversation, we ask you, please do us a favor. Like, rate, follow, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening. That helps us to bring you the tips, tools, and tactics that give you the edge in growing your business.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time for the Contractor's Edge.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks, everybody.